Today we're going to talk about some Mac shortcuts that are totally worth knowing and actually using. They're super simple, super handy, and once you get the hang of them, you'll be hooked. Let's dive in.
This is the Point and Click podcast with your host, Mark Yapchak.
I'd like to welcome Al Fasoldt back to the podcast. Al, thank you for joining me for part 2 of our sessions on shortcuts. I think you're much more of a Mac user nowadays than you were in the olden days.
That's correct.
But tell us a little bit about your Mac shortcuts.
And we're going to do them real quickly. But to me, the nice thing about Mac keyboard shortcuts is that they all kind of make sense. Now, Windows has a lot of nice shortcuts too, and some of them make sense, and some of them are just like, wow, how'd they come up with that? I think the reason, actually, there's a common sense answer to this quandary, and that is the Mac is a newer operating system compared to Windows. Windows goes way back to DOS.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was Windows, 2, Windows 3, Windows 3A, Windows 3.1, all that stuff, and on up to what we have these days, Windows 11 is what I'm using. And some people use Windows 10, but very similar. In the Mac, they started out, they created these shortcuts that all of them make sense. And in fact, if it doesn't make sense, it's not a shortcut. It's like, what are you doing, George? Get back to your school studies. Okay, so let's start out with the simplest of all of them. You may know, Mark, as a Windows user most of the time, you may know some of these because they're so similar to something that you've come across in Windows, and that is cut, copy, and paste. I should point out that you can find these on the Point and Click website.
Thank you.
You find a whole list of the Windows and Mac shortcuts, 2 separate files. Okay, so Command X allows you to take something that's selected and get rid of it. It actually gets rid of it, and it's gone. Now, so Command X excises the whatever you're doing. Command C, notice that we're using Command where Windows uses Control. Command C copies. Command C for copy. How could you not remember that? Okay, Command V makes a virtual copy and puts it into whatever you've got on your screen. You could do a Command V to put a web address onto the top of your web browser that you copied and so on. It doesn't have to be text, doesn't have to be a word processor. Command Z is very important in the Mac, as is in Windows under Control Z. And I have to say, all the years that I spent teaching people how to use Windows and how to use the Mac, it's the one that a lot of people just never use because they never think of it. And Command Z is undo whatever you just did. Now, you can also hold down the Shift key.
Oh, that's a modifier.
And reverse the undo. Command Z or Shift Command Z. So you can play with the keyboard that way, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Command A, select all the items in front of you.
Now, is that both documents and files in a file folder?
Yes. Oh. Yes, whether it's files in a file folder or in what the Mac calls the Finder window. It could be anything that's in a window, or even on your desktop. If your desktop is what is the top of your computer display, here's my desktop. Command A selects all the icons and everything else. Command F for find. Command F and then type in what you're looking for. Or if something is already selected, like you've already selected my name from a list of felons, you got my name selected, and you do a Command F, it will then search automatically for whatever was selected, meaning my name.
Okay.
So you just did a Command F for find. Now, suppose you want to search again. It's pretty important. You're searching for, this person's name or this amount of something. Command G. Again, think of it again, again. Some people say again. Okay, Command G again. Command H is one of my favorites. On the Mac, it hides the windows of whatever's the front, what's called a front app. On a computer, you have a screen, and some things are going to be foremost, some things are going to be rearmost. So the foremost ones are called the front. So Command H hides the windows of the front app. Boy, is that cool. That is really cool. A lot of people don't know about it. I've never tried it. Like, whoa. If you want to view the front app and hide everything else, hold down the Option key when you do Option Command H, okay? That's kind of cool.
It's good if you're multitasking and you're doing a lot of...
Oh, my gosh.
It's hard to figure out where you are at any moment if you have 5 or 6 windows open.
It's a lifesaver. It is absolutely a lifesaver. Here's one that I use all the time. And despite the fact that my dear wife is a Mac user constantly, she uses a Mac when she's sitting down in her easy chair. She uses a Mac when she's sitting at her desk at her office. She uses a Mac like it's like second nature. But she doesn't use this particular shortcut because she didn't learn it. And I tell her, hey, and she says, thank you, but I'll do it my way. And that's Command M. And, in Windows, we don't have this thing. So it's a foreign thing to a Windows user who is now using a Mac. Command M minimizes whatever the front window is. Minimizes it and makes it go down into the dock. That's a way of clearing the screen. I'm working on like 5 things at once. So I do a Command M, boop, 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 and they go down there. In Windows, if you want to open up something, you double click on it. I want to open up, boop, boop, double click. Well, Mac has a similar thing, but it uses the idea of open as O, Command O, open the selected item. So if you have an icon on your desktop and it's selected, it's not running or anything, it's just selected. In other words, it's darkened, that kind of thing. So you do Command O. Command O, the keyboard, makes that come up on your screen. That's cool. Command P. What do you suppose that is, Mark?
I would think that Command P would do you're pasting something, but maybe I'm thinking of printing more than pasting.
In Windows, Control P does the same thing. And a lot of people, I taught Windows for years, and like people would look at me strange. What do you mean Control P? What is this? No, Control P and then Command P. Okay. Command P gives you the print dialog, and you can print. So I want to print. I do a lot of PDFs. I create PDFs. Mac is known for the fact that it can create PDFs. And in fact, the entire display system on a Mac is based on PDF. That's cool. So making a PDF is nothing. But printing a PDF, okay. So I just do the Command P print, and off it goes. That's really nice. Okay. Something that I know you will understand. Command S. What do you suppose that is? Command
Some of the
S.
programs I have already have that included as an option. So on my editing software, when I do the video editing, I've gotten into the habit of doing Control S just to make sure that I'm saving. It's nice to have your work saved up to a certain point.
You never, that's a good point. You never know when disaster or minor disaster or major disaster is going to strike. So save your work with Command S on the Mac, Control S on Windows, save it. And one of the cool things about the latest versions of the Mac, latest Mac operating systems, in other words, one of the cool things about it is that it automatically saves for you. If it's an Apple app, or it follows the Apple app guidelines, the current guidelines, that it'll work like it's supposed to, it'll save what you're doing. And that's why, like, if I'm using my Notes app on my Mac, it's a very nice, simple app. And, oh, it's time for dinner. Okay, I'm coming. And I just close it down. I don't save, I close it down because, after all, it saves as you go along. Every time you hit a keystroke, every time you do something, it saves. That's really cool. Command T creates a new tab as you're running. If you're doing, all the standard web browsers do it that way. Control T in Windows, Command T on the Mac creates a new tab. That's nice. How about Command W?
It's a Mac shortcut, but it can be applied in Windows as well.
Yes, Command W closes the front window. Whatever the front window is, okay. If you want to close all the windows, let's say you got a word processor and you got 5 windows open, wow, that's really good. So hold down Option, Command W with an option that will close all the windows. And so that's cool. People ask me sometimes, they used to ask me sometimes, but now everybody's used to, whatever, I'll just hit the power key and then my Mac will come back up. If you have an app that's not behaving, now Mac apps misbehave just like any other, like kids. I've got a 5-year-old who misbehaves. Well, that's what 5-year-olds do. Okay. So if you have a misbehaving app on a Mac, hold down Option, Command, Escape. On the Mac, it will just force quit the front app. Your word processor is misbehaving. Option, Command, Escape. We should also point out something that's really, really handy. If you're running something and it's not behaving for whatever reason, maybe the computer got confused, that happened, or maybe you're confused. You take your mouse and hold it over on the taskbar, hold it over the icon for whatever's running.
Okay.
Do a right click, and up will come a little menu of what you can do. And one of them is to quit the app.
Oh, good.
And if you do it again, it says, I told you could quit it. And you didn't believe me, huh? The menu changes to force quit. So you can go ahead and force any misbehaving app to quit without messing up anything else. That's nice. And that's by right-clicking on the icon down in the taskbar. Okay.
All right.
Here's one that I use it so much, I forget that most people don't know about this one. At the office, I would sit down alongside somebody. I got a problem, blah, blah. And so they're trying to view something. Now, the newspaper is known for this, putting high-quality pictures in the paper and on the website. So they're looking at some pictures and they're trying to figure, well, how can I see the next one and how can I see it on my screen? I don't know how to do it. If you select the icon for a picture mypicture.jpg, whatever, and hit the space bar, it comes up on your screen instantly. Instantly. Hit the space bar, comes up on the screen. And that's called Quick View.
Okay.
And Quick View has been built into the Mac ever since day 2. I think day 1 they were saying, hey, it actually starts up. That's pretty good. Day 2, they started celebrating some of the special features. And that's a special feature. And, okay, Quick View, and look, there it is on my screen. Hit the down arrow, see the next one. Right? Hit the up arrow, see the previous one. And by the way, there is a free Windows utility that does the same things. You can add to your setup on Windows, have it run automatically when Windows starts up, and it gives you the same feature. A lot of PC users who use some of Microsoft's really fancy software use this, and that's Control-Tab. Control, and then the tab gives you a preview of everything that you've got running, and it spreads them out on the screen. Well, on the Mac, Command-Tab does the same thing. Absolutely the same usability. Command-Tab, and there they are, blah, blah, blah. And you take your mouse or your finger, if you're not using a mouse, and tap on the one you want to come up on your screen full size, and you got it. That's Command-Tab. So what do you think, Mark? Are some of these interesting?
Yeah, I go back and forth between the Mac and the PC a lot. I have an iMac that I bought a couple years ago, and I like the functionality of the Mac better. I think that a lot of what you were talking about makes sense, and the commands make sense. Sometimes Windows commands can be a little cryptic, and you don't know exactly what it is it's going to do. But I like the fact that you can control what app is where. I do, like today, for example, just to give an example to our listeners, I'm running a camera software, I'm running a studio software, I'm running my email program. And in Windows, all tabbing can let me go between those programs on a click.
For both Windows and a Mac, that's extremely handy. And there are many times I've been working away for hours, and it doesn't matter if I'm on my big Windows computer with oodles of memory or on my Mac with small oodles of memory. I've forgotten what's running.
Right.
But if I do that Command-Tab on the Mac or Control-Tab on Windows, up comes a whole list, and you're there. Oh, there it is. Take my finger, if I'm not using a mouse, or the mouse, and click on the one that I'm interested in, and it comes up automatically. That's probably the second or third handiest keyboard shortcut for both Windows and Mac. So, okay.
Yeah, the next one I see on your list on the top of page 3 got me a little worried. You had Command Grave Accent.
Okay, on your keyboard.
I just want to know how grave it is if I push that key.
How grave is it? I guess we used to call it in the business a back quote. Yeah. And on my Mac keyboard, and probably on your Windows keyboard, it's just below the escape key.
Oh, yes.
Below the tilde. It's probably French. So that's a grave, or a grave. Shift Command 5. Shift Command, very, very useful combination. Shift Command 5. Hold on Command and Shift, and then hit the 5 key, and you will get a screenshot or make a screen recording. So what I do is I don't use 5, I use 3 or 4. Shift Command 3 or Shift Command 4, and that sticks to screenshots. A cool thing. You going through your Mac, and the Mac has a Finder. From the beginning of time, they've called that the Finder because originally it was used to find things, And now, of course, they could have called it anything, but they still call it Finder. So you're going through Finder. Wow, look at all these notes that I left for myself, and I never organized them. I should organize them. So you click on one and then another and another. Of course, if you hold down the Command key, you can click on another one somewhere else in the list, and now you got them both. Or you can hold down the Shift key and click on one, and then way down below, hold down Shift, click on another one, and the whole block of them will get selected. Okay, so you've got that, and suppose you want to save those. You've saved all these different things that you did, and you want to save them in a separate folder with those things selected. Control Command M. Here's the Mac using the Control key. Wow. Control Command N. New folder and new folder. Hold down Control. You're controlling the way it's going to do this. And with a command. Command is a very powerful key. So Control Command N. Create a new folder that contains the items that were highlighted.
Nice.
Okay, that's cool. And then give the folder a name. Don't do it like I know some people do. They have 500,000 folders on their desktop, and they're all named new folder. Oh, come on. Okay.
Any of these shortcuts are available on the document that's on the Point Click website. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But there are quite a few. We're kind of picking and choosing some of the ones that are more useful and interesting, but there are probably 100 shortcuts you can do.
And sometimes the shortcuts are fun the way the Mac does them. Here's a shortcut that answers questions. I've had people say, "How did I turn my Mac off?"
There you go.
I don't have an off button. Should I unplug it? If it's a laptop, it keeps on going.
Right.
So what do I do to turn the Mac off? Okay. The easiest way is to hold down the power button for maybe 7 seconds or so. And you hold it down until it's gone. The screen goes blank, and there's no activity on your keyboard and all that. So that turns off your computer. Suppose you want to just put it to sleep. Hit the power button briefly. That puts it to sleep. The Mac goes to sleep so fast that there's no wow, the monitor went to sleep. Now, if you have a screensaver, you will notice that in the screensaver settings, it'll say turn off, put the monitor to sleep, turn off the monitor in 15 seconds, 30 seconds, an hour and a half, whatever you want. I find it very annoying if I'm doing something and my monitor goes blank. What I was doing. Now, if you're hitting the keys on the keyboard, it won't go blank because it says, "Oh, somebody's working on this." Well, if you touch any key, it'll come back. Touch any key. Now, any key, there's no keyboard key called any key. I swear, I've had them looking for any key. Where's the any key? And the best key to use for any key is one that doesn't do anything. Right. And what's the only key on your keyboard, Mark, that doesn't do anything?
That doesn't do anything. I don't know. That's a good question.
It doesn't put anything on your screen. It doesn't do any depositing of money in your account or whatever. Doesn't do anything, and that is the Shift key. The Shift key simply changes how the keys operate the next time you press one. Okay, so you can hit Shift, or Shift lock or Caps lock, that kind of thing. And then nothing will happen, at least to what you're doing. But the computer, your Mac, recognizes, oh, this guy's going nuts. He's pressing this key. Now, on the Mac, and I think maybe on Windows too, both the Mac and Windows have a design, modern design, that allows you to hold, it allows the computer to hold down a key longer than usual. And you trigger that by hitting the return key or the shift key many times more rapidly. And then you get a note on your screen saying, number one, you're an idiot. Number two, would you like these keys to respond longer when you hold them down? So you hold down a key that's just a fraction of a second that it's doing, but you can have it last a lot longer. So look into that if you're the kind of person where, I'm one-handed now instead of two because I've injured my hand, and I have a hard time taking that one hand and reaching keys on the keyboard, you can turn on that feature, and you'll get it with tapping many times on the shift key. Now, I don't know any Windows computers that have a media eject button. Some Macs might have.
I had my first Mac that I bought. I had to buy a CD player to go with it because I had stuff on CD.
Yep.
And I remember the first time I put the disc in, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And I was doing whatever I needed to do with the CD. And then I looked at the CD device and I noticed there was no eject button on the device itself.
Right.
And I said, well, this is interesting. Every CD player I've ever had in my computer has had an eject button. I said, well, now what do? I can't get the disc out of the drive. And then I realized that there was a little click, like you just mentioned, the eject media button, and boop, the disc came out.
The Mac is very sticky, very one single-minded about what you have to do to get the CD to come to eject. And the best thing you can do is to hold down the power button. Hold that power button down, and eventually the CD drive will open up, will spit out the CD, and that'll work fine.
Finder is one of those features that I really had to learn because it's similar in effect to the Windows Explorer, which is what if you're in the Windows world and the PC world, you're accustomed to. So Finder is the Apple Mac version of Windows Explorer. So there are a lot of features that you can do with Mac Finder.
We should point out that the Finder is older than Explorer. So in a sense, Windows Explorer, but now they just call it Explorer, is a kind of gee, we can do it better here at Microsoft. And maybe they can, maybe, who knows? You get used to the way each one works, and it's fine. You want to make a copy of something. You want to copy, like Gloria wants you to send her, she's your sister-in-law's cousin, far removed a little bit there. Gloria wants you to send a picture that you took at the annual pig roast, So there's the picture. It's in your Finder, and you don't want to send the original, even though, so we want to duplicate it. You want to make a copy of it, in other words. So you do a duplicate function with Command D. Select it, hold down Command, and do D, and it makes a duplicate instantly. Very nice way of doing it. And it tells you that it's a copy of something, on the screen. Command E can eject the CD. Command E, and it will eject a CD that's internal to your computer or external. It's on a USB cable and something over there. That's cool. Or even if it's a hard drive that's plugged in. A hard drive is plugged into your computer by a cable, and you say, well, gee, I don't think I want to leave that hard drive plugged in while we go to, Las Vegas, So Command E for eject, easy to remember, and it will eject from the computer's control whatever was selected on your screen. See, one of the things that's different about the Mac, and it's so superbly better than Windows, no matter what, and I've had arguments with Windows users, mostly my brother, who's, and I say, how come they don't put the disk icons on the desktop like the Mac does? Why would you want that? Well, here's a good example. Suppose you want to eject something, a disk. Select it on the desktop, Command E.
We talked about earlier about organizationally maintaining things in folders, and
Yes.
it's convenient to be able to open a folder
Yes.
quickly if you have some documents or some images you're moving off of an SD card off of a camera. And you want to put them quickly into a new folder
Yes.
and name it, and give it a place on your desktop.
Shift Command N. Shift. You hold down Shift and do Command N. Notice how Command is kind of like the way that Apple changes a keystroke, like a B. You don't want to put a B on the screen. Hold down Command, and it does something else, Shift Command N for new folder we were talking about. That's nice. New folder. N makes sense. Shift Command O to open the documents folder. Now, why in the world documents? Documents. No, that's a D. It's not an O. Apple does something very, in a sense, it's cute, but it's something very special, and I have adopted it long time ago. And that is, I take the second letter of whatever that name is, and that's the name that goes to the key combination. Shift Command O opens the documents folder. Downloads is different because that's got an O also. So Apple and L both use L. Downloads. Shift Command L, downloads folder. Now, when you download on the Mac, that should end up, whatever you're downloading, in the downloads folder. Likewise on Windows, it should end up not on your desktop, like somebody I know. I don't want to name names because she's a wonderful cook. Either the second letter of the word or maybe letter of whatever part of it that is obvious when you say it, like downloads L. Shift Command U. Shift Command U. Now, there are Mac users that I've helped over the years who have no idea that there's a folder called Utilities.
Right.
And that's because they'll never see it. It's buried inside of another folder. It's buried in the Applications folder. So they never see the Utilities folder. Now, keep in mind something that's not obvious. When you do a shortcut to a particular folder, it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter whether the folder is right there on your desktop or 16 levels deep. In this one, then it's in this one, then the Mac finds it and opens it up. So it's great for folders that you just don't want to have cluttering up your system, but they are accessible with a single keystroke. Shift Command U, Utilities, and that opens up Utilities. Now, Utilities, to Apple, Utilities means such things as how you can take a fresh drive and format it like you do in Windows. You put you buy a drive. Oh, look at this drive. It's got all these blah, blah, and you put it. Wait a minute. It doesn't work. Yeah, it works if you format it. So the Utilities folder has drive utility, disk utility, and other things too, lots of other things. You don't like to see the dock? That dock's getting in the way. I'm trying to see what's at the bottom of this window. Well, temporarily, you can show or hide the dock with Option Command D. Option Command D. Boop. The dock disappears. Do it again, and the dock reappears. Now, Windows has a dock just like the Mac has a dock. And Windows doesn't have this wonderful keystroke that you can do. How do I make a shortcut, a literal shortcut? Mac calls it an alias. It's called an alias. Windows calls it a shortcut. So the cool thing is you can do it with command control or control command, put control first, control command A for alias, control command A. Now, what is an alias, just briefly? An alias does everything that the original does, everything the original does, because when the Mac knows that you've double-clicked on an alias, it says, okay, this person wants this particular program or this particular whatever it is, maybe it's a document, to come up so they can work on it or look at it or view it or whatever. And it doesn't matter that that's not the actual document. It's an alias. This is one thing that happens all the time with people. Mary wanted me to send her the last 5 pictures that we took at the party that we had. So there they are. I found them and I sent them to her, and she said to me, I didn't get any pictures. I got these weird things that were like 6 bytes long. I'm like, what are they? You gave her the shortcuts. So make sure that if you're sending somebody something, don't send them shortcuts, because the shortcuts only work on that particular Mac.
You know, you may have stored hundreds of documents or photos on a removable drive. That's an example I use a lot. Now, you're not going to have that removable drive's contents on your local computer, because it just makes sense to have things off on a removable drive so that they're safe and sound. You're making a pointer to those files on that removable drive. Now, here's a thing that happens a lot of times to people too. They'll unplug that removable drive, and now those shortcuts can't get to the object that they were pointing to.
Pointers, that's a great thing. Thank you very much. That's a great point. Pointers are the heroes, I think, the heroes of modern computers. And they're heroes on Linux, they're heroes on Windows, they're heroes on a Mac. That's because they don't take up any space, but they do everything that the original file does. I've got a file for some Mac application that is, as I recall, it's 5 or 6 gigabytes big. It's a photo editing app. The shortcut that I put on my desktop for it is, 6, 8 bytes, whatever. I mean, it's tiny, only takes up very little space. If I had to put that icon for the actual program, the actual app on my desktop, in addition to having it in my applications folder, I'd run out of space all the time. So shortcuts are wonderful, wonderful invention. And we thank the Unix people, the Linux people, and the Windows people, and the Mac people. All of them use shortcuts very wisely. It's wonderful.
One I found interesting is using emojis and symbols. I know that's something that's really useful in the social media world. An emoji, for those that aren't familiar, is a little face or a smiley face or an object that serves, speaking of shortcuts, serves as a shortcut for the word. So if you're happy or you're mad, you can have a happy smiley face or a sad face instead of typing the word happy or sad out. So
at the very far left of your screen, there's a Apple symbol, an Apple emoji. There's an Apple icon at the very far left at the top of the screen. First thing it says is about this Mac, and the next thing it says is system preferences. System preferences. And on an older Mac, it might say something else. On a newer Mac, it might say so. Who knows? But it's the first actual thing that pops open about this Mac. All about this Mac says is, hey, this is a Mac, as if you didn't know. How dumb can you be? This is a Mac. I've had people call me. I used to get calls at the office. I'm working with my computer. They didn't say whether it was a Windows or a Mac or whatever. I ordered my computer and I can't do this and I tried this. So then I have to say, I have a question for you. Are you using a Windows computer or a Mac? The scary part is when they answer, I don't know. This is the one that my son gave me. He's 13, and I've been, doing this. So I have to ask, like, what does it look like on the keyboard and that kind of thing? And we finally figure out that it's an old Mac from like 1923, that kind of thing. So there are people who don't realize that they're using a Mac when they're using a Mac. So if it has at the top of the screen an Apple, top left, then it's a Mac. And system preferences on my Mac, and it's a little window, and it has all of the things that you would like to adjust maybe, or like to know about more, things that you never could figure out, but there they are. There's the explanation. Also, things like adjusting the sound, getting another printer to hook up with your computer, things like that. That's system preferences. Includes accessibility. So you go into accessibility in the system settings or system preferences, and then click on the keyboard icon, and then click keyboard shortcuts, and then click accessibility. Wow, we've gone deep and deep and deep into it. You can choose invert colors.
Now, why would somebody want to do that?
They're bored. I don't know. There are people who don't have normal color vision, and they don't see green the way that we see green. They don't see maybe red the same way, and so on. I worked with a guy, and for years and years and years, he was choosing the wrong color. We used color stickers. This is before computers. We used color stickers, and you'd put a green sticker on a piece of paper saying that it needs to be edited or looked at. An orange sticker on the piece of paper saying, okay, this is ready to go to the next stage in production. We're finished with it at our workstation. And he would always put the wrong color on. So finally, I said, Dave, nice guy. He was a wonderful guy. I said, Dave, I don't want to criticize you at all ever, because you're a wonderful worker. But there is a small problem. You put the wrong color sticker on these things, and I have to look at it and then take that sticker off and change it, or put the right sticker on top of the old one. And he said, Al, I have to tell you something. What is that, Dave? I'm colorblind.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my gosh. You'd think that he would have told me that early on in the colored sticker situation. But he was, he didn't want to say that. So those people can't see the colors the same way. So that's why if you reverse the colors using the Mac system preferences or whatever it's called on your Mac, you reverse the colors. Some of those colors that you can't see very well will be very prominent to you, and maybe they'll look weird to somebody else, but that doesn't matter. Nobody else is working on your keyboard when you are, and it's easy to change it back.
A lot of the options under the emoji and symbols under accessibility include the word focus. Can you talk a little bit about focus, what that means?
Focus is whatever you are working on, whatever you're putting your time into on your computer, that's where your focus is. For example, you're looking something up on the internet and you're using Google Chrome, and you're looking for there's this thing, there's that thing, and you want to buy a duster, or not a Plymouth duster. You're old if you thought about Plymouth dusters. Admit it. a duster. So that's where your focus is. Other things you just you're tuning out from. Now, if your notifications, people send you things, they said, Mary, it's time for our, whatever, our monthly meeting of the Duster Society. Oh, gee, if people send you messages that divert your attention, they've taken the focus away from what you should be doing and thinking about. So focus in the Mac, that's a thing that was added lately by Apple. Focus is the ability to help you stick to the subject at hand and not. So it might delay a notification of new mail, or it might make it smaller or whatever. So that's the idea behind focus. As I look at the document list, wow, there are a whole lot of focus-related shortcuts. Isn't that wonderful? When sometimes I think, and having a daughter who's a Microsoft engineer, a very, very bright one, having a daughter who's a Microsoft softens my opinion of Microsoft, because it's a real thing and not just a target for why did they do this? It's a real organization and they treat their employees very nicely. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. But sometimes I have to think, where are they when the people at Apple make these kind of shortcuts to help you focus on your work or focus on your interest or focus on your game or whatever it is? Why doesn't Windows, have that? Anyways, I won't go any farther.
But I appreciate it, Al. Thank you so much for these.
You're
Everybody
very
get together
welcome.
on a regular basis. There's always topics that I want to bring up and talk to, and I always go to. There's a term in Japanese called sensei. I want to go to the sensei of the Mac and the PC world, and that in my world is Al Fasoldt. He is always giving me the information I've always looked for. He's always been a solid source, and I appreciate all your knowledge and sharing it with our listeners, because I'm sure they can benefit from it for sure. Thank you so much.
There's another, before you hang up, there's another term in Japanese called doitashimashita. Don't touch your mustache.
I am glad you brought that up.
It actually means thank you
very
much.
It's arigato gozaimasu. But Al, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time, and we will talk again soon. Thank you. Now, don't forget, you can connect with us in many ways. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and you can watch video versions of the podcast on YouTube. You can listen on your favorite podcasting service. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Audible. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an upcoming episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.